Hello, guys. I'm so glad to be here to talk with you. Thank you, the staff team, to having me here. And today we're gonna talk about exploitation with shell reverses and infection with PowerShell using a VBS file, right? So my name is Filipi Pires, and let me share my social medias with you. If you'd like to, send me some message, or if you'd like to follow me, or send your questions, or share your knowledge with me. So it will be a pleasure to exchange some knowledge with you, right? So let me introduce myself. So I am security research and security developer advocate at Zup Innovation. Zup Innovation, it's a Brazilian company responsible to producing, developing many different softwares and projects. And I'm responsible for some security open source project, very interesting, with the name is Horus Sec. You can find many others information about this project in my in my GitHub or my social medias. It's an open source project, right? So I'm an advocate of this awesome project. Hack is not a crime, because when you see some magazines or news on TV, for example, sometimes the explanations about the hacking it's related to a bad guy. But hacking it's not a crime. Or hacking it's a mindset, it's a culture, it's a lifestyle, because it's a creative mind. So that's our idea in this awesome project, right? So I'm a part of the staff team of the DevCon group São Paulo. I am a Brazilian guy. I'm talking from Brazil now, right? So I am a security research and instructor of the Hacker Security. Hacker Security is responsible to provide some Portuguese training, actually, and I am one of this instructor, right? And I am a writer and reviewer of these three magazines and Pentest magazine, Hacking 9, and Forensic magazine. So, right. So this is few informations about me. So let's see our agenda. During this day we're gonna talk about the what is threat, change your mind, my responsible disclosure about the CrowdStrike, because these tests happened on CrowdStrike, right? So I will explain more attacks actions about about the API manipulations, some invokes that I am using, and infections process, right? So in the end of these presentations, I will open to answer your questions, right? So first of all, my idea is to explain a few explanations about what is threat, because probably you know about that, but about this actually. But let's suppose if you don't know what is a threat. So this is a simple explanation. So according of this ISO, is a threat is defined as a potential cause, because you need to understand that this potential cause can be, to improve, not improve, but to generate a potential incident in your system or in your organization. But what does that mean, Philip, in this case? Maybe it's a software attacks, or maybe a theft of the intellectual property, because if you have this intellectual property and someone, would like to stole of you, it's a theft. And identity theft, so if you produce something like that, or sabotage, for example, or those informations, or information extortion are example of the information's security threats, right? So you need to look of this, because if you produce some software, for example, you need to generate a project or a product, maybe all those things is related to a threat, right? It's not my explanation, it's explanation related to this ISO. Perfect. So why I explain this, because in the end of this presentation, it will be clear about my tests, but you need to understand all those steps about the research, right? So I create this kind of flow. So first of all, we have a threat. And after that, when you have a threat, you need to see if this threat is no or unknown, because you need to to study about the knowns. You need to receive this kind of acknowledgement, because if when you understand more about this, you can see, you can be, creative, and you can discover more about the unknown threats, right? So when you are, studying or analyze or executing semi-analyzing, in fact, in some thread, for example, after this analysis, you can produce some report, right? So after that, you can improve your defenses mechanism, like this security sensors that you have in your organization or your company. Sometimes you can improve this kind of cyber threat intelligence. Awesome word, right? It's important for the mom. Cyber threat intelligence, to build it. I know that is difficult to build it in many different companies, because you need to have different guys with different knowledge. But the idea in the end of the day is to build it, to improve this kind of business unit. Let's say that, right? And after that, you can strengthening your cyber resilience, because all the time the threats are changing, right? So, okay, so let me invite you to change your mind today, because first of all, you need to understand what is cyber threat hunting. I think it's very clear, but my idea here is to explain more about this kind of mindset, right? So when you talk about the hunting, and of course, you can have this kind of guy or, professional inside of some stock team or support team, or maybe cyber threat intelligence team. But the idea of this action is related to a proactive approach to the cyber defense, but with an offensive mind. It means the process of proactively and interactively searching, right? So through the networks to detect, first of all, you need to detect, and after that, you need to isolate this kind of advanced threat. This is a good point here. You need to detect and isolate. But take a look at this offensive mind. It's my invite. This is my idea to invite you, right? So what is a threat hunter? It's a person, right? It's a professional responsible to recognize, isolate, and disable a potential APTs, advanced persistent threat. Usually some techniques in manual techniques, like, you can execute different analysis, like, more analysis using, for example, a statistic analysis, let's say that, and or using artificial intelligence, right? So based in some techniques or related to something like that, right? So this professional can search a possible internals. Take a look at this, internals or external intruders. That is the key, because in the past, when we look at to the threats, usually we look at to the outside the company, the external intruder. But now, in this moment, not exactly in this moment today, but in nowadays, actually, we have many possible internal intruders, right? Because we have persons that have been studying about your company and how your company works, or how this social media about your company works, to try looking some different strategy to try explore your environment or your network or your company, and so on, right? So let's talk about the threat hunting based on IOCs. It's indicator of compromise. But in this case, we have some indicators to include of these IOCs. And then that's my point here, because when you talk about the IOCs, not usually, but when you have the IOC, you need to receive an attack. This attack already happened, right? Because after that, you can analyze, and you can check, and you can have the domain and IP address, or a website related to some phishing, or some website related to some malware delivered. It means after the attack, right? So let's see some indicators that we have, some suspicions on hostile domain or IPS, or maybe MDC or hashes, or part of the cryptographic file, or some signatures detected suspicion or suspect, or unknown files, or maybe some IDS signatures or antivirus, let's say this kind of way, or some data related to a potential explanation, or maybe if you remember about the WannaCry, is related to a Microsoft vulnerability, right? Do you remember about the SMB protocol to share some information? So this IOCs is related to and that vulnerability, right? And another point related to IOC is based on techniques and procedures. It's the famous TTPs, right? Associated with a suspicious or known hostile events or data, or maybe some tools that are being used, for example, like a Minicat or another, Unix platform. Maybe you can use it when you realize or perform some penetration tests, right? So this is my point, and this point here is related to IOCs, right? So if you see some information about the IOC, today we have this kind of awesome project, our information sharing platform, now like MISP, right? So MISP is a thread sharing platform. It's a free and open source software helping information to sharing of the threat intelligence, including cyber security indicators. It's very interesting because you can see here in this picture many different events related to some malwares. So you can produce some intelligence thing like these different attacks, right? So let's talk about another technique. This technique is named AOA. It's indicator of what? Of attack. But in this case, the focus here is on why and an attacker intention, right? So you need to answer these questions. Why the attacker are doing that, right? So it's a more strategy view of the TTPs, and again, the famous tactics, techniques, and procedures. Many times related on, of course, and APTs, because if you have this kind of tactics, techniques, and procedures, of course, we need to have this more knowledge to be execute this kind of attack, right? So when properly positioned in a more mature intelligence program, as I mentioned, so this is totally related on behavior. And let's see what the difference between EOA and IOCs. IOCs and IOA, it's the good point here is when you talk about the IOCs, the attack already happened. But when you looking in works with related, so EOA is related to something it's not happened yet, right? So you need to see some indicators or that you can see things that didn't happen yet, but could be a new attack or attack, right? So let's see. It's a real-time behavior, including but not limited to endpoint behavior analysis, right? Because probably you have this kind of, settings in your antivirus. But let's suppose, for example, if you have the some PSX running in your environment, but at noon, and you don't have any tasks to do in this kind of time, right? So maybe it's a suspicious behavior because who could be execute this PSX in your environment? Do you know what is PSX? It's a tool from Microsoft responsible to execute some remote scripts, right? So let's suppose if you see some events at noon in your company and you don't have any people executing this kind of task, it's a bit suspicious, right? And another point, it's called execution metadata, or like at some DLL call it related to some sequences, events, or some testings that I'm taking, right? So user behavior in relationship to the digital thread, some behavior like, some users clicking in some websites, or maybe TTPs, again, linked to a host data, such as malwares, or using in some attacks, or persistent and health components using an attack. It's all those informations are some behaviors related to a maybe EOA, right? So let's see some more indicators. For example, internal hosts with a bad destinations. Let's suppose that you have a company here, and not here in Brazil, but whatever, maybe in Brazil, and you don't have any business with the US and I don't know, Poland, or maybe Luxembourg, for example. So if you don't have any business with this kind of country, so why you need to be why you need to have connections or your internal hosts to be a connections with this kind of country? No need, it's not necessary, right? So you can look this kind of in this kind of behavior. But if you have internal hosts trying to connect with bad destinations, maybe is a suspicious. Another point is internal host with a non-standard ports. As you can see, for example, let's see some ports like a 443 or AT or 53, for example, the standard ports. But you have another different port using to be a SMTP protocols. It's maybe suspicious, right? So another point is public server like a DMZ to trying to connect in your internal host, or maybe of our malware detections, like you are see some outbreak attack in the 1 a.m., for example. It's an off of our malware detection, because usually in this time you don't have your support team. It's more short, right? You don't have the full team in this kind of 1 a.m. of the morning, right? And another point is some networks in scan in your internal network, internal host. But of course, if you have, for example, a penetration test team executing these attacks, okay. But if you don't have, it's a suspicious. Another point is multiple alarmist events in a single host. Again, on a single host with a main different alarms, maybe the system is reinfected with a malware, another behavior. So if you see here, we have different behaviors, and maybe you have an infection or maybe not, because of this is related to EOA, right? Another point is multiple logins from different regions. You are one person, right? So if you are in Brazil, if you are in Brazil here, or if you is in Brazil, it's impossible to be at the same time in another different countries, right? So it's very simple. Another internal host using much SMTP to try connects, and internal host using many queries to external and internal DNS. It's here, it's very, very common, right? So now my idea is to explain more about my POC, right? So this is my responsible disclosure about the CrowdStrike company, because this test is related to a CrowdStrike, right? So when I discovered this failure, right? So I submitted this report in October 20, right? And I sent some messages. If you see here, it's in Portuguese, because my contact of this company, it was in Brazil. So I sent some message to the Brazilian guys here to explain about some tests that I am doing. And here the impact in English, of course, because I was supposing that these reports maybe will be, sent to the research team. So I sent some information in English. This is the first test that I did, right? So using the zoo, I'm download something, right? So, but as you can see here, it's October 20th, right? So I sent and I received some generic answers from this vendor, and another day, and the CrowdStrike team answered me, not time, sorry, for here, it's team, not a time, right? So the simple generic answer is our technical team analyzed the points, and we didn't validate this as a valid test for this solution. So I'm trying to send another emails. I'm trying to call, to make a call, to try to talk with many people inside the CrowdStrike. I open a support case, and here the explanation in Portuguese. And after the 90th and December 90th, I received this last answer from this vendor. Would like to thank you for your submission. It was being forwarded to our internal team for a full review and modification or creation additional capabilities in Falcon solutions, right? So it should be necessary. But here the bad answer. As you aren't not current customer, if you an active support subscription, however, we cannot provide you with any further information for results. So and I should you, and this guy is me, right, have any additional questions or concern, please direct them to your account team. But if I'm not a customer, I don't have an account team, right? So this is the last answer that I received from the CrowdStrike 3 months after, right? So my tests. Okay, so let's talk about our demonstration or POC, right? So first of all, the idea, the purpose of this test, it was to execute several efficient detection testings, not only in Counter-Strike, but I did, I tried this test in Counter-Strike and Sophos and Cyber Reason, right? So of course we have bad results, not bad, but the better results in other companies. And Counter-Strike, it was very, very, very bad. But the idea is this presentation, it brings the results of the defensive security analysis with the offensive mind. Do you remember in the beginning of this presentation, I talk about this change your mind, right? To try understand more about the offensive mind related to a defense, right? So if you are a guy that is working with a defensive team, you can work with an offensive, you can have this offensive mind. So, right? So that's my purpose here. And first of all, the idea is to execute some reverse shell, right, in my Wickman machine. And after that, I have this reverse shell and I can manipulate something. And I'm using this reverse shell to connect some CNC or command and control to download another PowerShell file, right? And after that, execute themselves and to download using API connection from this kind of VBS malware. And after that, to infect the environment, right? So let's see here my simple shell. It's very simple, as you can see. I using in Python, right? So I imported this kind of libraries, right? So as you can see, it's very, very simple. And I open the socket here, as you can see, using the socket stream to connect in my attacking machine. And I open this 77 port to receiving a reverse shell, right? So this is the process that I open. As you can see here, Windows System 32 and CMD to open the process to manipulate, to open this thread to connect and in my Wickman machine. This is the simple code. By the way, if you'd like to see more information or more detail about this test, all those informations are in my GitHub here in Filipi 86 the slash CrowdStrike, and here you can see all those complete report and complete informations about this test, or in this case that I'm talking with you here. Here it's important informations. Machine learning is using to pre-execution preventions. Falcon Host employs sophisticated machine learning algorithms that can analyze millions of files characteristics to determine if a file is malicious, right? So the signatureless technology enable Falcon Host to detect and block both known and unknown malwares. And here, in the end of this presentation, you can see this malware is totally known malware. So in the end of this presentation, we will see some problem here. But anyway, so let's return our presentations here. And let's see the first demo, the post video. So I am opening my Wickman machine. As you can see here, this is my Wickman machine with the IP address is 142, right? So it's a thready hunting slash Thor, right? The host name is thready hunting win 10 POC, right? So this is information about my Wickman machine. It's Windows 10, as you can see here in my demo, right? So first of all, I executed these informations to show you about this Microsoft Windows 10 Pro, some informations about the settings that you can see in Portuguese, and many others informations related to this systeminf command, right? So let's see the directory here. You can see the shell.py. This is a file that I'm using, that I'm showing you now, right? So I'm deleting just this file because I will download after. As you can see here, you just have a shell.py, right? So now I will show you some informations about the settings using in this configurations, right? So that I did actually, I apply the best practice in the Counter-Strike. I set in some configuration, as you can see here in my demo, right? So here, as you can see, this is a policy, right, responsible to block. Okay. This is a sensor version, right, of the solutions. And I will show you some information about the configurations, right? So here, as you can see, I applied all those best practices in this solution, right? So first of all, I will apply this best practices to guarantee that we have the best practices applied in my policy, right? So as you can see here, default, I'm using default because it's, it's a best practice recommended by CrowdStrike. As you can see, all those policies is enabled, as you can see here, and I am using here, let me pause the video here, it's very important to see that. The AdWords and pop-ups and clouded anti-malwares, all those is or configurations are in aggressive mode related to a prevention. In this case, it's totally blocked, right? And if you see in detection, it's not a block, but but you have the log, or it should be, and anyway, but it's a extra aggressive, right? So as you can see here, it's totally aggressive in detection. In prevention, it's aggressive. So in next generation antivirus, the same case, detection, it's totally aggressive, and any other, it's aggressive. It means we have here the more than the best practice because I put in extremely aggressive, as I show you. But of course, in detection, because if I didn't block, I needed to have the logs, right? So as you can see here, many different strategy, because the CrowdStrike has different engines to work and to try detect this kind of attacks related to PowerShell, related to some, it means, as you can, let me pause here and return here. Here, the detection, it's related to a lateral movement, right? So here, lateral movement and credential access. So if let's suppose if I get some access, if I got some access inside the machine, it's impossible to using some techniques related to a lateral movement, right? So here I execute to see the process. As you can see here, we have the main services running in my victim machine. It means my machine, it was protected by CrowdStrike, right? So this is the first test to show you all those information. So here, as you can see, we have my netcat using the 77 port. Do you remember? This is the port, the known standard port that I am using this POC, right? So I will execute this Python script shell.py, and as you can see here, any information appears here for us, but when I return in my attacker machine, take a look what happened here. It's a simple. Do you remember the code? It's using an open socket, right? It's a very common. It's like a script kid, right? So, but it's not detected. So what happened here? Because I'm using the simple open socket, and it's not a blockade. And as you can see here, I have all those access in my victim machine. So I can see all those informations in my folder. And now take a look what I will do this in this moment in my POC. I'm seeing in the desktop folder. I will see in the I'm gonna, in the desktop folder. As you can see here, we don't have any folder of files here. So I am setting you lose, kind of joke, right? So then I create this file here, and if you see, take a look, it's this a simple file that I'm create. If I return in my victim machine, as you can see here, I have this folder inside my victim machine. Take a look, this is my folder that I am created because I have now the reverse shell, right? So the next step is manipulate the API, because now I have the control of my victim machine. So next steps, I created a VBS PowerShell. So, but using an API, because I had this sample. This is the hash sample. I downloaded this information inside of this Malware Bazaar platform. I don't know if you know, but I can share after this presentations the link. And by the way, I wrote it wrong here because it's manipulation. It's not manipulation. Okay, so let's see here. You need to using the API key because you need to have the, by the way, the Twitter account. And after you realize this kind of, print this, fill this kind of form, you have this API key, right? So I created a simple PowerShell, and as you can see here, right, to connect these informations with the API, and I download after that this hash, right, using this API key. And after that, I can use another invoke process. This is a true process in the Windows 10, right? So let's see here. So I have the connections, right? But this here, it's a good key because I already have the access. And let's see. After that, I using the ngrog to simulate my CNC, right? My command and control. So I activated this ngrog, right? So activating my machine, and I open this my web server to connecting this ngrog, right? So I copy these informations and I put here because I will using this invoke web request, right? As you can see here, this is just information that I'm copy here to have more to help me in this demo, right? And I needed the real name of the folder, right? So here I have the PowerShell as I show you, right? So with the API informations, the manipulations, and many others informations. So I pass here, right, the command and control server, as you can see, and I copy here the folder, right? So I have here my web server, and I have the ngrog server here, by the way, in the United States. And when I did this talk, I was in Brazil, okay? And here, let's see the next steps. So I am using this invoke web request. I'm called the PowerShell, as you can see here, right? And after that, I will using this function, invoke web request. And because my idea is to using this invoke request, this function using the PowerShell to call my CAC, my command and controller. This is my command and controller, right? And here I have this folder malicious because it's a PowerShell, malicious PowerShell, right? So after that, I execute this, I set my output file, and I set the correct path. As you can see here, we receive a GET request, and I have the 2000 results of this requests, right? So now, take a look at this. If I see the informations, what I have here, now I have the VBS underscore kill dot PowerShell. So now, take a look at this important information. I using this Dictman machine to connect them in another command and controller, in this case, in United States, right? In this United States, I had the VBS underscore kill, right? So all those manipulations using, PowerShell, Python, and shell reverse, not detected by CrowdStrike, right? So next step, using the evokes, right? So first of all, I'm using invoke web request, as I show you in this demo, right? To send to call the CNC, the command and controller, right? And after this, let me explain more about this PowerShell, right? So you see this first part, right? So now here we have the second part. We have the invoke web, not this second part. Invoke web request, dash reverse and method post using a post, right? And as you can see here, I will connect in this directory, in this repository in Malware Bazaar, and I will see some .zip folder, right? So I need to download all of those informations in my environment. And after that, after download these informations in my victim machine, I will need to open this using a 7-zip, right? I will set the hash file because I'm setting in this another the hash file here, this kind of parameter, right? Because this file I will I downloaded in my victim machine, right? And after that, I had a password with this folder, right? This password is infected. So take a look. The command is executing the 7-zip file to extract this folder, right? And I will set the password to open all those informations inside of this zip file. And after that, I will invoke another expression to execute this file. Means this file, it is inside of the zip folder, right? So this zip folder has a password. So all those informations I'm using this PowerShell script to running in my victim machine. And after that, I have this VBS malicious folder, right? So infection process, here, take a look at this information, very important. In the end of this malware, 172 lines, right? So in the end, as you can see here, the mainly function is create an extension. What kind of extension? Type extensions, doc, XLS, MBP, MP3, text, JPG, URL, HTML, text. It means all those extensions will be, right, will be changed to doc VBS, as you can see here in this code, right? Using what? Using a VBS, it means using the W script doc shell, right? It's a Windows process. Perfect. So let's see the last demo today. So, okay, I have my malicious file inside my victim machine. I will try execute again. So I will call the PowerShell, right? In using a PowerShell. Let's see here. Okay, I put in the some error here. I set a wrong parameter. I will execute again with now it's a corrected command, right? PowerShell as doc // and take a look at this. Zoop Security Labs and connect to the API, as you can see here, and I extracting file, achieve, right? Everything it's okay, is executing my victim machine. So take a look at this. I will set again PowerShell and I will see some process, right? So let's see, it's running now. Take a look at this. The Hebrew script is running in my victim machine. Again, anything it was detected, right? So I will see in details this ID, right? This ID process. Take a look at this. Yes, it is running. You know, it's running. Take a look at this. The CPU, 76 high CPU, right? So if you see more details about that, this is the high consumption of the CPU. So here, all those extensions, right? So let's return in our victim machine, right? Because I have this reverse shell, as I mentioned, and take a look what happened here with the CPU. Take a look at this. Take a look, you can see here. I tried to open again the task manager, but I didn't. You know, I tried to click here, but I didn't access. Take a look, this is what happened. And here, I don't know, I suppose probably you can see here, we have the process of the W script running. Take a look at this, the high CPU, the totally high CPU. So let's see about the process, or the netcat in this case, what the connections, if about not netcat, netstats, about the network. Take a look at this, how many connections that we have, just to prove you. Right. So take a look at this, my reverse shell, it's established. Take a look at this. And of course, maybe it's obviously, but just to prove you that we have all controls of our Victman machine. So let's see again. Take a look at this, what happened in our Victman machine. Take a look at this. All those extensions are changed. The shell.python, our VBS kill, all those all those files, it was changed. Our machine, it was what? Infected. Let's see. Do you remember the first file that I created in the beginning of this presentations? Loose doctext. It was what? Changed. Take a look at this. It was, in this case, it was infected, right? So this machine, it was infected. Let's see all those documents. Take a look at this. But do you remember? We have applied the solutions. Take a look at this, all the other files inside of Victman machine. All those files, it was, infected and changed. Take a look at this. This is internal suite that I had in my Victman machine. All those files totally infected, right? So, but didn't detect by CrowdStrike, right? So I reported all this information as I show you, and but unfortunately we don't have any answers, right? So this is our machine again, our Victman machine, right? So here I finish my presentations, and thank you for staying with me during this conversation. If you have any questions, so please let me know. I'm totally available to talk with you in this day.